whatever questions that they have. I do have the forms available so that we can see them and we can go over them. We still got about 1 more minute, so hopefully a few more people can jump on and join us. I do know that we've had a few agents complaining about already trying to practice and get used to talking about what buyer representation and having, prospects sign before going to a showing. And the feedback is kind of mixed, but one of the things that I'm going to talk briefly about is I think that the more we discuss these topics and the more that we role play with one another, the more comfortable we're going to get about the subject. Because if we're having a conversation with a client and we're not confident on the information, no matter what we think, we're conveying that information a lot of times non-verbally. And so if you haven't really read up about buyer's representation agreements and what the NAR settlement says about them, I highly recommend that you do that, because the more comfortable you are with the topic, the better you're going to convey that message to a potential client.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
For the transactions we have right now, do we still need to send the co-broker agreement, or is it fine with the paragraph for now? The ones that have been ongoing before the CSO was removed.
Yeah, so essentially, you can have those agreements prepared and share them as people show your property so that they know what to expect. The only time you really need to have it is when you go under contract.
Yeah, but the ones that are already under contract before they took the CSO out, should we just leave them as is or just
Yeah,
okay?
you don't. So
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Essentially, anything that is currently under contract, you're good, because
Okay.
hopefully you're going to close before August 17th.
Yeah.
Okay. So anything that is not under contract to close before August 17th, those are the ones that we're going to need to have listing agreement amendments, and we're going to have buyer representation agreement amendments so that it aligns with the new forms.
Got it.
Yes. All right. It is 12:01. We can go ahead and get started. Let me give me 1 second. Need to be on the right page here. Let's try that again. Here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. These are all of the forms that have changed, along with the 3 new forms, so that as we're speaking, we can go ahead and look at the form if we need to. Again, this is meant to be informal so that you have the opportunity to ask whatever questions have been on your mind, questions that have been, coming up with other agents as you're having discussions, things that you're not quite clear about. One of the things that we just briefly mentioned, I want to make sure that everybody understands this. If you have a listing or you have a buyer that you've been working with and you're not going to be under contract by August 17th, you are going to need an amendment for the listing agreement and an amendment for the buyer's representation agreement. And there is an amendment for each of those. So really quickly, let me move this box out of my way so that I can see here. So right here says your 1404 amendment to listing. This is where you're just going to go in for all of the properties that you have that are not under contract. You're going to complete this amendment and send it to your clients for signature and make sure that you sign yours. And again, just as a reminder, it now says broker associate. You're gonna click that and you're gonna sign it because it doesn't say sales agent anymore. It says broker's associate. What do you mean there are no documents? One moment, please. Amendment to representation agreement. So again, if you have a buyer that you've been working with and you just have not been able to find them the property, you're not under contract before August 17th, you just need to go in and amend that representation agreement. Broker's associate, sign, client sign, save it in your file. And if you want a refresher about all of these forms, Ravi did upload the last training that we did into Suite Assist, so you can find the one where we went through each of these forms. Go back to see what questions we have here in the chat. Really quickly, Mary, can you clarify what you mean by to send the verbiage for new listing on commission?
Okay, so this are questions from other agents here in the Dallas area.
Okay.
So we've been taking classes like every other day from everybody. So everyone will say, have your broker tell you what verbiage you should use to collect or to advertise your commission. At one time, we also had another maybe title company or Metrotex, whatever. The broker will supply you with some kind of a sign or something to put out in your listing. So it's just like everywhere. So we want to make sure that we do what Encore tells us to do. That was that question.
Gotcha.
What
Okay.
verbiage or and where will we be displaying this?
Gotcha. So really quickly, and we'll let Ravi speak on this as well. As far as verbiage, remember that if you're going to advertise something as buyer friendly, for example, and this is something that I had riders made for my signs that say buyer friendly, and I have them on my listings. It's right out there. It says, you know, this property is buyer friendly. You need to make sure that you have your clients sign the authorization to disclose. Second, I don't know why this keeps kicking me back out. But I want to pull up this form really quickly while we're on the topic because it is very relevant and very important. Where are you? Right here. So it's the TXR 1412. Seller's authorization to disclose and advertise certain information. It's not a new form, they just changed the title of it. So down here, it's stating seller authorizes broker to disclose what they're willing to pay towards buyer's expenses. And additionally, there's a section where you can fill in here and you can put specifically what the seller has authorized you to say. So whether it's buyer friendly, it's motivated seller, it's bring all offers, you know, price is negotiable. All of those statements need to be in here and signed by the seller so that you have their express authorization to do so. And the same thing, if they want you to advertise on your website, or they want you to advertise on a flyer, they want you to advertise on a landing page, make sure that you have the authorization to do so on this form. back into chat.
And Jennifer, and that's very clear between the listing agent and the seller. I think the question became, how do we advertise outside on the actual home
MLS.
listing,
Yeah.
the property?
So
Can we put a sign out there, like you just said, buyers friendly on attached to our for sale sign?
yes, you can. Again, as long as you have that authorization to do so, that is the critical component of that. You can put it, you can have a website made and you can put all of your, CSO information on your own website. I personally don't recommend that simply because that is a lot to maintain. If you have an assistant, you want to assign that task to an assistant, great. I did see recently there was, let me see if I can search Google it really quick. There is an agent that has a page made already that you might want to think about doing this. Oops, helps if I spell correctly. Compensation. Hmm. Let me see if it's on here. No, this is not the site. I'll find that link and I'll put it in the agent chat just so that you guys can have an idea of what some other brokerages are doing. You can put it on a flyer, you can put it on like I mentioned, a landing page. So if you want to go and create a landing page specifically for a property, you can go ahead and put that CSO out there. You can text it to the other agents, essentially, however you want to convey the information to agents, you can. You just cannot list it anywhere in the MLS. I've seen agents that are putting notes in the agent remarks, CSO of X%. You absolutely cannot do that. You cannot even upload a document onto the MLS that has a note about what the CSO is. There has been apparently some confusion about that, but let it be very clear. The reason that we cannot do that is because it is a violation of the settlement terms. And as we stated in one of our last meetings, GMAR has already expressly stated that any agent that is found doing that and violating that policy will be booted off from the MLS, as will their broker. Because the minute that we do that, we violate the settlement terms and agreements, and we open the door to potential lawsuits. So that's why they're taking it so seriously. Through the chat again really quickly. Broker will request short or long form. Yeah, I do know in the courses they are stating that it's up to the broker what they want to accept. Ravi has already stated that he will accept the short form or the long form. I highly emphasize that if we do start with the short form, once they decide that they want to make an offer on the property, just switch to the long form, because the short form does not have indemnity or liability included in that. And we want to make sure that the brokerage is covered. On the short form, really quickly, we stated that you can set the amount that you want to charge to show a property. I recommended not to show for under $25 a property. Again, it's your business. You handle your business how you want to handle your business. But I would recommend that you value your own time, because it costs you time to show properties. It costs you energy. It costs you gas. So, you can choose to put 0 on that form and not charge anything. But if you do choose to charge, they need to send that money to Ravi before you show, and then he will take 10% of whatever that charge is and disperse the rest to you. And the ideal preference for that would be Zelle or Cash App. Not taking checks, not doing money orders, none of that stuff. Will broker have company website to show the percentages? That is going to be up to Ravi. I personally am not going to put percentages on my own website. just because it is a lot to manage and I don't want to. So for my listings, I've already prepared the compensation agreement between brokers. And so when somebody asks me, I can simply, text a screenshot to that agent and let them know what the CSO is. Or I've had a few that reached out directly the minute that a listing went live and asked me what the COS is. I get whatever process that you want to set for yourself or for your team, you're free to do so. Ravi, did you want to speak to that about the company website? Are you planning to put the percentages on there?
No. So on the website, like the Encore Fine Properties website, it's linked to, it's through the IDX feed, right? So then it's taking it from the MLS, and we do not want to do that. The only way I would advertise or would want agents to advertise, I mean, they can do it in a social media or flyer after they get permission from the client and it's signed by the seller. Okay, for the compensation for the buyer. Y'all understand that? It has to be signed to reduce the liability, basically.
Yes.
Or to cover Encore.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Sorry, go ahead. Well, and
Yeah.
already, like I've already been receiving offers on my listings, and they're sending that agreement right in with the offer. They're sending it with their pre-approval letter. So some agents are already in the habit of finding the information and I'm making sure that it's documented.
Yes. Oh, real quick, also on the short form that you were talking about, yes, I agree. The short form I do allow, but just like Jennifer mentioned, if the client's serious, wants to move forward, switch to the long form after that. I'm only allowing short form to reduce your workload to initially show the property, so you don't have to go through filling out the long form. And if the client is still in the air about buying, you don't waste more time. Y'all understand that? So please do that. Okay, and then also regarding the fee that Jennifer mentioned, I do not recommend anyone doing it for free. Okay, because your time is money, your time is valuable. Do not sell yourself short. There are going to be, buyers wanting you to do it for free. Nobody does it for free. And charging $10 for a listing, for a showing, I mean, it's not really a lot. $25 is good. Now, what you can do is offer them credit, at closing if they move forward to purchase. And if they don't move forward to purchase, then they lose. Plus, it will reduce the amount of listings they would want to see because they have to pay money up front. Okay, and I'll send everybody the Zelle information where the client would send the payment. I would need all the agents to make sure that they send me that information from the client, the Zelle information, and for how many listings it is, or the copy of the short form on WhatsApp or email, so I can keep track of everything, because it's going to drive me crazy. And that's the reason I'm charging 10%. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Poor Ravi, I feel so bad. It's going to be a lot of work. It really is.
Hey, Jennifer,
Yes.
quick question. Ravi was talking about having the seller sign, obviously compensation for buyer, but where would we put that if they eliminated the paragraph for the CSO?
What do you mean? Where would you put that?
Yeah, on the listing agreement between you and the seller that you're gonna be offering a percentage to the buyer.
Oh, it's still there. Give me 1 second. Let me pull it up.
Cause I thought on the last meeting it was eliminated. But I'll wait on you.
No, it's there. I just did one for a listing I just put up.
I might
For a
have been
lease.
confused then. Probably it's just the MLS one.
Yeah. For a listing and a sale, it shows where you can compensate other, which you will give the other, and then the clients have to sign.
Got it.
Oh, right there at the top. I missed it.
Exclusive right to sell and exclusive right to lease, both have them.
Yes. All right, let me drop this box down again. It's in my blanket. Okay, so right here in your compensation, it's in here. So this paragraph includes
it.
payment and compensation to other broker working with the buyer. Seller authorizes broker to compensate the other broker as indicated below. So
Would you put the total number one, or do you put like what's for you and then what's for the other guy separately?
So it says insert total amount
Total
for
amount.
broker and other broker.
Got it.
So here's the thing is if, for example, they're gonna give you 5%, but you're gonna keep 3 and you're gonna give the other agent 2, you can do something like, well, hang on, it's not letting me do that. So you can do 5 there, and then you could specify here that buyer agent to get 2%. I have seen that discussed about doing it that way, so that way it's very clear. Originally, the way that this was designed though is you just put the full percent in here that the seller's gonna pay. And then if there's a sub-agent, somebody that is not offering representation to the buyer, but going to work under the broker, then you would put that percentage here in B. So, and here's the thing about these forms that I've taken 3 classes about them already, and in each of those classes, the information changed. So I'm planning to take another one because as we get closer to the date and as different agents have asked Texas Realtors questions, there's been new information released, or some of those questions were answered more specifically. So the same thing that they're doing, I'm planning to do. I'm planning to take another course, and if there's new information, then we'll do another one of these Q&As so that every single one of us has the most current and relevant information. And the same thing, as you are running into situations and you're not quite sure about what to do in that situation, make sure that you're reaching out to us so that we're aware and we can make sure that we're sharing with everybody in the agent group chat, because this is how we're going to have to learn for the course of the next couple of months, because I promise you things will continue to shift. Go ahead and move this.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. 1 second, let me get back in the chat box.
Oh, Jennifer, also in the end, whenever you have time, I want you to just go over your listing presentation that you did with the seller to, work on compensating the buyer's agent as well. Because that would help versus not offering them anything.
Okay, will
Yeah,
do.
thanks.
Thank you.
I
All
also
right.
have a question. I don't know if I can ask it right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if we're sending out an offer and we're representing the buyer and we're wanting to get the CSO from the seller, just to my understanding, it's the compensation agreement between brokers.
Correct.
Okay, and that would need to be signed by the listing agent, correct?
Correct. It's signed by both of you. So when you go to submit the offer, you're going to complete the form based on what the agent has shared with you. You're going to sign it. You're going to send it in with the offer so that the broker, or excuse me, the seller's agent can go ahead and get that signed and send back to you with an accepted offer.
Okay, let's say they don't sign it. Does that mean they don't want to pay a CSO? Or
Well,
how can we go about that if it's on the actual like contract? Because on the contract under the representing brokers on the very bottom, there's still a section where it says other broker to compensate the other broker, and then you put a certain percentage. Let's say they sign that, but they don't sign the compensation agreement between brokers.
you don't want to just rely on the contract. You want to make sure that you have the agreement signed. This agreement, the reason that they created it is for protection for both sides to say, yes, we are in agreement. These are the terms. This is the client that's being registered. This is the beginning date and the end date, and this is the amount that is going to be paid out. So no matter what, make sure that you get this completed and signed on both sides. So again, you're going to put the listing broker, the cooperating broker, the address of the property you're going to be making the offer. You can call the agent ahead of time and say, hey, I have a client that is going to be submitting an offer. What is the CSO that you're offering? You might want to think about doing that before you go and show the property, because again, if they're not offering anything, your client needs to be prepared to pay you. And so I want my clients to know that before we even step foot on the property. They need to know, if you love this property and you want to move forward, you're gonna have to pay my fee.
And I
Or,
think it's gonna be part of educating them. I had this recent buyer, and I was charging him 1%, and obviously he was complaining a little bit like, hey, don't the seller pays that? And I said, at this point, they're not obligated to. So for me, this 1% is the base. Whatever I can get from them is just extra. And he was okay with it.
okay, but remember, if you put 1% on your representation for buyer's representation, excuse me, you're gonna wanna go back and amend that if the seller is offering compensation, because they will not pay you above what is on that agreement.
No, typically I put a 3. If anything, sometimes I land below that,
Okay, all right.
which that I can do, or I have to amend that as well.
You need to amend it.
Okay.
If
If it's
it
lower as
changes,
well.
yes, if
Okay.
anything changes in that agreement between both parties, you need to go back and amend it.
Got it.
All right, and that's one of the things that has been a little bit confusing. So again, you're gonna put your term in here, you're gonna put your, percent of sales, right? Or if it's a flat fee, I had one recently that the seller was offering just a flat fee, then you put the flat fee in here. And then if it's a lease, then you put the lease amount. Go back to the chat here. I think we covered the question about this.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so when I do the agreement between the buyer and us, and I put compensation of 3%,
Mhm.
and then the seller's paying 2% and the buyer's paying 1%, you don't need to amend that?
No, on
Okay.
that one, you won't need to amend it because it does still state on there that we're gonna seek to get the payment from the seller's side. So who's gonna want this information is gonna be the title company. This is how they're gonna know who gets paid what and who's paying what, because you're gonna have your compensation between brokers agreement that's gonna be sent to title. And if the buyer's paying something, you're gonna wanna send them that information so that they know where you're getting paid from and how much.
Okay, but this is, for example, we don't have a broker's agreement because we're still doing the old, it's on the MLS, how much they're gonna pay you. It's on the contract.
Oh, because it's still on RGV MLS, the compensation is still showing. Yes, okay.
Okay, so if we have the seller, the contract says 2%. But then I have a contract between the buyer and buyer's agent. And it says 3% in there. But the seller's paying me 2 and the buyer's paying me 1 on the residential buyer tenant representation agreement.
Right.
It says 3%. So we don't have to amend that because 2% is coming from the seller. So the buyer's left with 1% to pay.
No, you don't need to amend that, because if you amend it down, then they're gonna think that you're only getting 1% and not the 3%. And that's, even though it's still showing the compensation on RGV MLS, I highly recommend you submit this form anyway, because then it's very clearly agreed upon that the seller is paying out of their proceeds that 2%. Because today it is still showing on RGV MLS, but once their deadline is up, let's just say that they set their deadline for next week. I haven't paid attention, honestly, to what their deadline is. But once their deadline is up, all that information is gonna disappear. So at least that way, you still have this agreement signed and you're covered to make sure that you're getting paid. Because once it's off the MLS, you have nothing showing or proving that they agreed to pay you.
Correct. Okay. Because I mean, we still have is that part gonna disappear from the contracts?
So they have not decided if they're changing the contracts yet.
Okay.
That, I believe the broker lawyer committee for Trek met a few weeks ago. And they set another meeting ahead of their normal quarterly meeting because they are discussing if they're going to amend that section of the contract. So
Okay.
at this time, nothing is changing, but it is possible that it will.
Okay.
I have another question to piggyback on that question.
Okay.
So, let's say the original agreement, you put 3%, but the seller is paying out 3% and you charge your buyer 1%, you would have to amend it to 4% or,
Yes,
got it. Thank you.
you're welcome. What will be Encore's policy on advertising commissions and seller concessions? So again, you're going to want to make sure that you have that form, the seller's authorization to disclose and advertise, to be able to put any type of commissions out on your own website, on a landing page, on a flyer, on your social media. And the same thing for seller concessions. Make sure that you get that in writing signed by the sellers so that legally and liably we are covered. And then you can post it anywhere except for anything related to the MLS. No documents can be posted on the MLS that have that information. No flyers can be uploaded on MLS that have that information. You cannot put it in the agent remarks. You can put seller's concessions on the agent remarks, but not CSO. So for example, if you have a seller that says, you know what, I will give 2% CSO and $2,000 towards seller concessions, then in the agent remarks in MLS, you can put seller is willing to give 2,000 in seller's concessions. That you can put. Is that clear? Okay. And in regards to being a policy, the brokerage policies and procedures manual is going to have to be updated and resent out. So once all the dust has settled and we get through the 17th and we find out exactly where we're landing, then we'll be able to have that policies and procedures manual updated and Robbie can resend it out like he did initially so that we get the signatures and everybody has a copy. So Encore's policy advertising on social media, again, I'm diverting back to that authorization from the seller. You're going to need to make sure that you have that. I would imagine Ravi is going to change in Suite Assist so that it will be required to be uploaded with every transaction. And yes, it is allowed to put it on your social media. Can we add the, oh, it disappeared. The BAC and the showing instructions. Okay.
Jennifer, quick question.
Yes.
Do you think agents can, they can send out, you know how they send out emails with property information, like property for sale, price reduced to all the agents on the roster? Can they send out a flyer like that, I believe, to all the agents with buyer compensation?
Not if it goes through the MLS. If they have it set up like they're using MailChimp or Constant Contact and it's coming out of their system,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Okay, that's something I would recommend. I don't know how agents, some agents may be shy to call, you know, the listing agent, hey, how much compensation are we gonna get? Is seller offering anything? So, and it'd be good to advertise it as much as you can on social media, you know, and even email by getting the roster. You get the roster form for McAllen or RGV, it's on Suite Assist. All you have to do is fill it out, sign it, send it to me for signature, or I think it's already pre-signed, and send it to MLS so you can get the information, get MailChimp, sign up for it so you can upload all the email addresses, and then you can send out emails, you know, flyers with their listings and the buyer's compensation.
Trying to find something somewhere. I took a picture. 1 second, just so that everybody knows what I'm talking about when I mentioned a runner. So let me see if I can get this on my camera. So this is one of my signs that I mentioned. This part down here is a runner. It says buyer friendly. That's what I was referring to. If you have the seller's authorization to advertise it as buyer friendly, you can do something like that. And then you can add that tag to all of your social media, right? Buyer friendly. I think there's going to be probably different terms that come out that help people to express that their seller is motivated without saying we're going to give you this or that. I would avoid using those terms on MLS right now because we don't know what stance they're going to take about tag phrases. All right. And we add the BAC and showing instructions, showing services. Mela, can you clarify that question for me? I'm not quite understanding it. Is she still here? Okay, I'm gonna go to the next one. We're going to have to submit a Suite Assist
Hello.
form for,
Jennifer,
yes, yes.
this is Mary.
It's showing time and Broker Bay.
So we don't have Broker Bay down here, and in showing time,
Can we add the compensation in there when they receive the text?
that actually is a really good question. I have not heard anybody discuss that. Let me take really quickly and write that down so that I can ask. Because technically it's not on MLS, it's a separate service.
And Jennifer, while you're checking that, here at the Metro Text, all the classes we've been taking out of Dallas, basically that buyers friendly was like you better not on your signs. So unless your broker gave you specific, like that's what the question was, the verbiage or permission to do that. So that's what
Yes.
we're kind of conflicting what you're saying and what's the North Dallas, North area, Texas is saying. Because basically on one of them it said, do not put buyers friendly on the yard on your sign. And
Well-
then just like Marla was saying about the Broker Bay and Showtime. That one of them said that you could not use that comment, but hopefully you'll be able to enlighten us.
So the association cannot tell you, you cannot do this or you cannot do that. They're supposed to refer you back to your broker on everything because it is the broker's decision on how they want to allow things to be handled in their brokerage, right? That's why if you take a lot of courses about different forms or contracts, they'll say, this is standard practice. This is the way that we typically do things. However, you need to refer back to your broker for the specifics about how you handle these transactions. Because ultimately they cannot tell you, they have to refer it back to the broker. So, but again, the main component of using buyer friendly is having that disclosure signed. That's the protection that you have stating we can do this.
Yeah, and I'll allow it. It's not a problem as long as you have it in writing, just like Jennifer said.
So are we gonna have to submit the form for showing services? Yes, you will have to submit the form because Robbie's going to need that form. Or technically, if you're gonna send, because this is gonna be before you even go under contract, you're gonna have to send that showing services form to Robbie in an email so that he has a record of that form and who's getting paid what. What's the difference between registration between brokers compensation? Okay, wait, registration between brokers and compensation between brokers. All right, give me 1 second. I believe you're referring to the registration between broker and owner. One moment. And Michael, ay, Dios mío, why does it keep doing that? Here. Tell me if I'm misinterpreting the question, but I believe you are asking about, you find it right here. Agreement between broker and owner versus compensation agreement between brokers. So the one between brokers is if you have the principal broker and the cooperating broker, and the principal broker is going to pay the cooperating broker the CSO for the buyer's agent. The compensation agreement between broker and owner would be used if you have a for sale by owner, or if you're working directly with a builder and there is no listing agent in place. Is that what you were
Yeah,
referring
but
to?
I understand that, but no, that's not exactly what I'm referring to. It's because I just had a well, not a client sign, but I filled out a registration agreement between brokers, and it also has the compensation. You put the timeline on, if the buyer gets into a contract on or before this date, the basically listing broker would need to compensate uh the buyer broker, or the selling broker, basically helping them, you know. Um that's what I kind of filled out.
So there's nothing coming up as registration agreement. I think the compensation agreement used to be called a registration agreement, because that's what it was called for the broker to owner, registration between broker and owner. This is the compensation agreement between brokers. So it has the parties, the property, the client that is being registered for that address, the terms, the amount that's going to be paid out at closing, and then the signatures of all parties. Was it like that?
Yes, it's very similar to the compensation agreement between brokers. Maybe, like you said, it may be changed. Maybe it used to be called registration. Now it's changed to compensation. But I'll check into it before I send that to the broker to have that on file.
Yeah, look at the date at the top of this, because it might be an old form. To chat. Okay, so it looks like I made it through all the questions on the chat. Really quickly, Robbie had mentioned about the listing agreement. Let me find my brain. Oops. All right, so one of the things that I discussed at our in-person team meeting at the McAllen office recently was that I've been doing tiers for my listing agreements for a very long time. When I send out a presentation to a, is this not opening? Ay, Diosito Santo, to a prospective seller, I create in Canva, I have a template that I use. Give me 1 second here. All right, hold up. This is an older version. This is one I just created for a listing we have. Can everybody see this as it switched over? It's like, see. Here we go. Sorry. Can you guys see this? Yes? Okay, perfect. So let me increase the size a little bit here. In mine, this is what I do when I send out a listing presentation. So I do a market analysis. I send that information to the seller. And with that, I send out this presentation. And in this, I tell them, these are the tiers. These are the additional services that are offered with each one of these tiers. And you're going to pick and tell me which tier that you want. And with that, I tell them, this is my recommended list price for your property, and this is what you're going to pay at each tier. So the main difference in each one of these tiers is the type of marketing services that they are going to get. And I've been doing this for a very long time. And I will tell you that 99% of the time, they choose the 5%. Maybe because I have it highlighted in gold, but I doubt it. It's because they see that that's where the value is for them and what their goals are. And the reason that I do that is because I have been a businesswoman for a very long time. I was a businesswoman long before I was a realtor. So when I think about services, or when I'm going to go out and shop somebody's services, I want to know for my money, what I'm paying, what is the value? What are you going to do for me? And I don't want a blanket answer. I want specifics, because a lot of times they'll say, oh, well, if you go for social media, for example, well, I'm going to give you 5 posts Monday through Friday, and I'm going to give you 2 on Saturday, or I'm going to give you 15 posts throughout the month, right? They have different ways that they approach this. But when you say, I'm going to give you posts, what does that mean? You're just going to post a picture? Are you going to use hashtags? Are you going to make sure that you are talking about whatever the subject is in that picture that you're posting? Are you going to interact on the different platforms, commenting and liking? Because the thing with social media, the algorithm picks up the interactions that you have. So you can go and post all day long, but it's not doing you a service. So if you have somebody that's going to charge you $500 a month just to post, or somebody's going to charge you $700 to post and interact, I'll take the $700 all day long. Does that make sense? So that's my philosophy with when I tell you, these are the tiers that I'm going to charge, and these are the additional marketing activities that you're going to get for these tiers, and you're going to tell me what you want to do and what you're comfortable with. It puts the decision right back on the seller, and they're sold into what they're getting. And I've been that way forever, because that's how I operate. Again, you do whatever you feel is best for you and your business. You have the right to charge whatever you want, what you feel your value is worth. But let me caution you that you need to make sure that you know very clearly what your value is. Because now that there are going to be a lot of people talking about value, you're probably going to have people ask you, why should I go with you? What is your value proposition? Why should I choose you? And I've had people ask me that over the years, but it's not something that comes up very often, because in my conversations, I start out at the top talking about my value. So by the time we get into business, I've already expressed to them the reason why they should work with me. All right, let me go ahead and close this. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Jennifer, quick question. The one, the compensation agreement between brokers, that's the one, right? For sale and leases that can be used, because it has both covered on there. Because I'm adding it
Yes.
as a requirement now in Suite Assist right
Correct.
now. So I just want to make sure there's nothing else I'm missing besides that document. I just
No,
haven't had a
it's
chance to
covered.
review all.
Sales on the top line, leases on the bottom line.
Okay, so that should be good. Is there anything else that's mandatory that needs to be added?
For the sellers, you need to add that authorization. Let me find the number. The authorization to disclose. I think that it's a good practice just to make that standard.
Okay, just need the name of that one.
Yep, give me 1 second. I'm just waiting for this to cooperate. That one, ay Diosito Santo.
Is it the 1412
I believe so.
to advertise?
Yes.
Yeah.
Form
right here.
1412?
1412, seller's authorization to release and advertise.
Okay, for sellers.
Correct.
Perfect. Okay, that one and the compensation agreement between brokers, right? Those
Yeah.
two mainly. Okay, I'm gonna add it on there. Now, the authorization to disclose, I do recommend everybody getting it done and filling it out and getting it signed by the seller, then using it for advertising purposes.
Let's keep doing that.
And try to do it at the same time you're doing your listing agreement, so you don't have to waste time. Another question, Jennifer, on the one for buyers, anything else I need to add, like a requirement form?
No, I
This
don't think
one?
so.
What about this one, regarding brokers fees?
So again, really quickly, an addendum regarding brokers fees.
Oh, and
Because this might come up. I had this happen to me recently on a transaction where the property didn't appraise. The seller refused to drop past a certain amount, which was quite a bit of ways from the appraisal value. And so the only way to make it work was and this one, it was a strange case because we had the original listing agent that I started to work with, and then there was a relocation agent that came in because the buyer, or excuse me, the seller decided to change jobs, and then we had a relocation company involved. So all three agents, all three of us, we had to choose to reduce our compensation to make the deal work. So if you come into that situation, you're going to need to be able to amend the agreement between brokers fees. So you might need this at some point in time. Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions that we have not covered? Stop sharing so I can actually see everybody. All right, here we go. So again, essentially, really quickly, I just want to revisit the topic. I talked about this in the very beginning, I think before some of you jumped on, because I've had quite a few agents recently come to me, not necessarily complaining, but voicing concern, I guess is the best way to put it, in regards to asking the buyers to sign the buyer's rep agreement before showing the property, because some of us have already decided to start having these conversations, even though it's not technically required until August 17th. I think, and I already said this, so if you already heard this, just bear with me here, but if you're not comfortable discussing these topics, it's going to come across to that prospect very unnatural. It's going to feel funny because it feels funny to you because you're not confident in what you're saying. So one of the things that we're doing in my group is we're trying to meet once a week, and we talk about the different topics. We do a little bit of role playing about the topics. We're going to do more of that this next week. When we get together, because I have had a couple of agents on the team say, hey, I tried talking to this prospect about this and now they've ghosted me, or they hung up on me, they won't take my calls. And part of it right now is going to be because Not every agent is doing this. We're trying to get ahead of the curve and to get comfortable and to get used to doing this before it's mandatory. And it's when you're used to doing business a certain way, like I've been doing this for 8 years, you get kind of set in your ways and you get comfortable with certain procedures and the approach that you take. So when you step out and you change that, it feels very strange. It's not necessarily comfortable. But the more that you have those little powwows with your teammates or with another agent that you trust, the more that you're going to be able to feel comfortable and confident talking about the information, right? Because the way that typically we do it now is we go and meet the prospect. We start to have a conversation. We show the property. We talk about the things they like, the things they don't like. We learn about their family. We're building a relationship and we're learning about what their needs are during that first initial showing, the first couple of showings. We're not used to talking right from the bat about, well, here's the buyer's rep agreement and I need you to sign this and I need you to sign that. We kind of interject that in slowly over time in small doses so that it's in the conversation, but we're not making it all about money, because that's the general perception of the public. When you talk about the representation agreement, you're talking about compensation, the first thought is all you care about is what you're getting paid. And that's the furthest thing from the truth with most of our agents, right? I can't say that for all the agents in the Valley, because there are some that they only give a damn about the money. But the majority of us that do this, we do it because we love it. We do it because we're great at it. We do it because it brings us great satisfaction to help somebody meet their real estate goals. So again, if it feels weird or strange to you to have that conversation, talk to another agent about it so that you both can get comfortable having the discussion amongst yourselves so that it flows out, so that it feels natural. Because the minute that you try to go and present it to a client, that's the feeling that you want them to have. Like, this is everyday business. We talk about it all the time, and it's just part of the real estate process. Anybody else had any opposition with, prospects that didn't like the idea of talking about that right off the bat? Anybody else practicing that yet? You guys are all very quiet today. I'm going to make everybody say hello in 2 seconds. All right. Well, we are nearing 1 o'clock. I don't want to take up too much more time. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover, Ravi?
No, that's all pretty much. Has anybody already requested money for showings? Anyone yet? Okay. I want to see what the first one is. So then we can show samples to other agents.
But that's not something you're requiring, right? To charge for showings?
I'm not, it's not mandatory, but
Right.
it's highly recommended that you charge to show properties and not do it for free. Because then, clients like to take advantage. They're going to have you show multiple properties and may not want to sign the buyer's rep. You have to have an agreement signed regardless before you show a property.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then if you're not charging anything, then they can end up wasting your time and not buy anything at all. Then what? What if they're window shopping? So you get serious clients if they're really serious and they pay up front, and you can give them that credit at closing. If I'm serious, I'll be okay with it. And I'll limit the showings I want to see. And that helps, with getting rid of the window shoppers and it keeps the serious buyers there.
But everybody understands, like, effective August 17th, this is mandatory. You have to have a buyer's rep in place to open a door.
Yeah.
That is a very critical component, because I can't speak for all the associations, but I can tell you, I was in a meeting with GMAR. I don't remember which meeting. I'm on a couple of committees with GMAR, but they very specifically stated that anybody that violates that and that it is reported, they will be removed from the MLS, and so will their broker, because it is a violation of the settlement and it's being taken very seriously. So, and again, we still have 16 more days before this truly goes into effect. So you have time to adjust and get used. That's why I recommend, like, start having these conversations amongst yourselves so that you are confident in what you're stating. If you don't truly understand how to explain buyer's representation, call me and I'll talk it through with you so that you do feel confident that you understand the concept.
So it's okay, we do the short form at first, and then we, if we continue, we switch them to the long form?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Just make sure that that payment, if you choose to take a payment and charge, they need to pay that before you show, and it has to be sent to Ravi, and then Ravi will take the 10% and send the difference to you.
Okay.
And I'll confirm, but before I even confirm, you don't have to message me to confirm if I received it. You can just ask your client to send you a snapshot that the payment was sent via Zelle. It's super easy. I don't want agents messaging me, hey, did you get the payment? Did you get the payment? For $50, $60. That's a lot of work. I can't check, but if the client sends it to you, you can see it and it shows sent. That means it was sent. And Zelle is cash. So you don't have to worry about it. And Zelle is really the best payment, or Cash App is another payment, and they can take a screenshot of the Cash App as well. So you know that the payment was sent, okay? And I'll send you information on both Zelle and Cash App for your clients.
So the form that's used to charge for showings is the buyer's representation agreement short form. It's TXR 1507. And there's two boxes. There's one that you check for full services, which again, if you're going to offer full services from the beginning, just do the long form. I would highly recommend, if you're going to use 1507, it's only for showing services. You check showing services, you put the dollar amount that is going to be charged to the client in that box. You have them send the money to Ravi, have them show you the screenshot that it's been paid, go to your showings. And again, I know some of you are thinking this, so I'm just going to say it. If you're thinking about not charging to show, I would recommend you put a limit on how many properties you're going to show to 1 or 2. If you want to say, you know what, let's take a minute to get comfortable with one another and have an opportunity to talk. I want you to sign this form. I'll show you this property, or I'll show you 2 properties. Fine, do that. Do business how you feel comfortable doing business, but value your time and just know that there are going to be people out there that they might already have an agent and their agent is not available and they just need somebody to show them a property. So you're a fill-in. They have no intention of working with you. They don't care that you get paid by closing a transaction. That's not their concern. Their concern is getting the door open and seeing the property. So I can tell you very specifically, I've seen an increase in the number of leads that have come in that have an agent and are wanting to see a property. I don't know if agents are out there telling them to go see the properties and then come back and they'll write the offer. I suspect that was on a couple of cases, honestly. But I've learned, ask from the beginning. If you get a new lead in, ask them, are you working with an agent? And the minute they say yes, I'm sorry, by the code of ethics, I need to refer you back to your agent. Have a nice day. Because they're doing it.
Hate to change the subject. This is Tracy. Before we get off, I'm sorry I got on late, but
No
I have
problem.
an example that's happening with me with another agent. She sent me over a seller compensation form by EXP, and it says confirmation of compensation from seller. So this form I didn't feel comfortable with because it's an EXP form, right? And it's asking me to have my buyer sign it. So I sent her over, of course, a broker, our Texas Realtor form that we were just talking about, broker to broker compensation, and she's having an issue with signing it. Well, I'm advocating for my clients and also for myself. I think this is the correct form to, for her to sign. So any advice on that?
Can you email that form to Ravi and let me put my email in the chat so that we can take a look at that. Give me 1 second. Ay, Diosito Santo.
I'm sorry, on that, on that note, there is a form which is 2406 that we're supposed to send after the August 16th. And it is a form that the seller and the buyer have to sign. I had sent it, I had told you about it, Ravi.
Which one? Which one?
Form 2406.
Okay.
2406 is the addendum,
Is it?
or excuse me,
There's
Yeah.
one that we have to send,
the addendum regarding the broker fees.
right? That's correct. And it has both the seller and the buyer have to sign that one. I don't know if maybe that's what she had sent.
Now, what I'm getting is an EXP form. It is not even a Texas Realtor form. It isn't a form. It's something that their company made up, and yeah, I haven't seen this before, but I'll share it with Robbie. Let me see. Do you have your information in the? Okay, I have it, Jen. I'll send it to you. Just for review. I'm having my clients sign this. I don't know what this is.
No, I understand. Well, and it very
Jennifer.
well might be that 24, that addendum that she talked about.
Jennifer, I was just looking at that, what do you call it? The buyer's rep agreement, short form and the long form. The only difference I'm seeing, you're still filling out the same information on one page versus the 5 pages. It just has all the verbiage on the 5 pages, which you don't have to really fill out. It's more like just paragraphs protecting you. So, and this is pretty much what you're already used to filling out as it is, right? It's just the same 5 pages, pretty much, that people were used to. So I was just thinking, Jennifer, what do you think if we just don't have a short form and just use the long form? And so they don't have to do a long form later on if the client's interested, because you're still filling out information on the short form too. It's not that much difference.
The main difference is the showing services. 1507 is the one that
Oh.
has showing services.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I said, if they know that they're gonna sign the long form, don't do the short form. Don't waste your time. If you know that you've already known this client, or if you've worked with the client in the past, or you already have that relationship and you know that you're gonna work together, skip the short form, go right to the long form. But the short form is the one that does have the showing services. It does have the dollar, or excuse me, the blank, so that you can put in the dollar amount. And that's where, if you choose to do that, and then, you know, after you have a few showings and you've had the conversation and they want to work with you, then you switch it to the long form, because that's where it has the indemnity and the liability, and Encore is covered as well as you.
Okay. So I'll put those both on Sweet Assist. I'll put the short form as optional. So if you have it, you add it on there. You don't have to request an exemption for an optional form. And then the main form is the long form, which is going to be mandatory. So that one you cannot request an exemption, because if you're submitting a file, it has to have the long form. Okay, and I will check and I will send the file back. I do not want errors, please.
Yeah. And just FYI, I have pages of notes that I've taken from the different form classes that I've already taken. My goal is to go through this and put in, make a reference sheet that says this is the form and this is what it's about. I'm gonna commit to you guys that I'm gonna get this done over the course of the next, give me 2 weeks, because it's been a really, really, really busy summer. Let me write that. Because I think this will clear up some of the confusion, because I'm still wrapping my head around all of this stuff. And again, I've taken multiple classes and you get different information at every point. It's a lot for your brain to remember. I mean, think about it. It's sometimes hard for us to remember 1 or 2 forms, much less, I think it was 15 forms that changed and 3 brand new ones. No, 16 forms that changed and 3 brand new ones. That's 19 different forms that we have to try to remember all these little details. So I will make the commitment to you guys to get a reference sheet for each one of these forms with the number, with the header of what it is, and a little bit of the information that's really pertinent that you need to know. And I'll put a reminder in my calendar so I don't forget. All right. Well, that's essentially all that we had today. And again, as I get different updates, I'll be sure to continue to share. I'll share with Ravi. We're probably going to want to do this again in a couple of weeks because there may be some changes that come right before the settlement date, the August 17th, D-Day, as I like to call it. And if you have any questions between now and then, I did put my email in the chat. Feel free to shoot me an email. You can call me, you can text me, you can find me on WhatsApp. We just want to make sure that you guys are comfortable and confident moving forward, that you're doing the right things. And if you're not, it's okay to say it because it is a lot to remember. And it's like they've turned our world upside down. It is a lot to take in at one time. You're welcome, guys.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. She is amazing. She's our for supervisor, always ready to help. And without her, I don't know how I would do this, by myself. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Roger.
it. This video or this meeting has been recorded, so get uploaded pretty either today or by tomorrow. I'll have Angie upload it on YouTube as well as Sweet Assist for everybody. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.